Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you are having a good day. I am joined today by my two co-hosts. It's Dale, correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
I'm
Dale
Dale.
in
Hello,
Canada.
everyone.
And my lovely fiance, Coda. Say hi, Coda.
Hi, everybody.
So, last week we talked ad nauseum, at length. We beat the dead horse with a stick, and we're still doing it today about the Nashville shooting. Now, in the wake of the shooting, we had a lot of stuff happen. We got controlled opposition from people like Elijah Schaefer. What's her name again? Cassandra McDonald.
Yep.
And of course, who could ever forget Ben frickin' Shapiro?
Mm-hmm.
Ben Shapiro was, of course, statist in his bullshit video talking about how he is completely fine with trans people having their rights removed simply because he believes that they have a quote unquote mental malaise, which is bullshit. On the heels of all of that, we had a trans person that was turned into I think it was the Colorado authorities for planning to shoot up another school, actually several other schools. I do not remember who that is, but I do remember that it was more fuel on the fire of let's disarm trans people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just fucking sick of this shit.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So Molly is in here. Say hi, Molly.
Oh, hello.
Molly is our other host. It appears that she's slightly late. It's okay, though.
Well, she is running on Serbian time. They aren't exactly a people known for their punctuality.
Yeah, I just came in to say that I can't attend this one, sadly.
Oh,
Okay. Well, you have yourself a good night. You you rest up. Okay?
Thank you.
take care,
I
Molly.
am
See you
really
next
sorry.
time.
Thank
It's all
you.
right.
Also, Dale, you should check DMs.
I saw, but I'm currently in a podcast, so I'll get back to you.
Yeah, okay. Well, good luck with the podcast.
Thanks.
Oh,
Okay. So on the back of everything, there was that other not even attempted, just turned in for the things that they said, which let's be honest here. You can't charge someone on attempting something if they didn't go through the act of attempting it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in theory, can you charge them for conspiracy to
No, because
do something?
that would take two people to set up without a second and more. Besides that, there's no conspiracy. Conspiracy quite literally requires two or more people to work together to do something.
I see. So,
No, go ahead.
so do you know what the actual charge was that they're being charged with?
I do not. I should look it up.
Because there are probably some laws against planning to do something illegal, but I'm not that well versed on such laws.
Okay, well, I'll fix it next time and go through what I've seen. I don't want to play this. Let's see, 19-year-old charged with plotting shootings at Colorado Springs school churches. It says on Thursday, authorities charged 19-year-old William Whitworth with 2 counts of attempted murder and other charges for allegedly forming a plot to conduct shootings at as many as 3 schools in Colorado Springs and possibly a church.
Yeah, don't you have to make the attempt to be charged with attempted murder?
Yes, you do, which is quite literally in the name. You have to physically attempt the murder. It says, according to a probable cause statement, suspect Whitworth, who identifies as female and goes by Lily, was planning a shooting at the school she last attended in 7th grade, Timberview Middle School, before switching to homeschooling. In the arrest report, the suspect was referred to as Lily and with her pronouns in its entirety after she was identified. This has just been more fuel on the frickin' fire.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that. That unfortunately that person seemed pretty far out, so to speak. I remember hearing they were punching holes in their walls at the time, like near the time of the arrest.
Now, see, beyond the fact that attempted murder isn't going to go on the table at all, what we had talked about last week, when it comes to being declared
Mentally unfit.
Adjudicated mentally defective by a court, or institutionalized, this would be a perfect case for that.
Yeah.
This quite literally is part of the law. This person can go to a psychological institution and forced in there until, their brain is sorted out, but all in all, you're never going to be able to charge this person. They're not in their right mind. They don't know the difference between right and wrong right now.
Yeah. From the sound of what they were doing before being arrested, they sounded like they were at least in some sort of suffering from some sort of psychotic break.
Some sort of psychotic break, perhaps. A prolonged psychotic break, I don't know.
Yeah.
They said that the suspect's sister acted with quote-unquote courage by reporting a threat she saw, potentially averting disaster. Lily was asked how much she had been planning the school, or I think that's supposed to be how long she had been planning the school shooting, and Lily stated she's about a third of the way from doing it. Okay, so
if I might just say, to any future lilies out there, A, don't shoot up school, but B, don't talk to the cops. And if you're committing a crime, don't tell the cops you're close to committing a crime. It's like, as much as this person is could definitely be at the least at most institutionalized, at the same time, always bothers me when someone just willingly tells cops things that then are used to lead to their arrest.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one. It says on a dry erase board in the home, Moore said that there were drawings of what appeared to be a school's floor plan. In a manifesto, authorities say the suspect detailed the names of individuals to be unalived, as well as information detailing the creation of improvised explosive devices and a list of firearms and how to 3D print them. In all of that, I see no crime specifically.
Yep.
I see
But I doubt
words.
that. Yeah.
I see drawings, but I don't see any crimes in this.
Yep. But something tells me people are going to use this as a pretext for attempt to ban the 3D printing of guns.
Oh, they've been trying. Listen, they tried. They've been trying since 2012 with the Liberator, and that's just, or was that 2016? I think it was 2016.
I think it was 2012. Maybe. I know the Liberator has been. I think the Liberator has been around for at least a decade now.
But you're never going to be able to stop the signal. You can't stop the signal, and that's one of those things that me and my father used to talk about when we're talking about police chases and stuff like that. You can't outrun the signal. Well, you can't outrun the radio. People are going to know. And people are going to disseminate information. You can't stop it. It's going to happen. And the more you try, the worse it's going to get for you.
Yep, the more people will do it. Streisand effect and whatnot.
Bingo. Streisand effect.
And I would just like to say big thank you to Cody Wilson over at Defense Distributed for all he has done for humanity.
No, we don't talk about that, pedo. You've gone silent.
Defend and explain.
I think something has cut out.
Yeah, I said we don't talk about that, pedo.
Wait, what?
I said we don't talk about that, pedo.
He is one?
Just explain already.
Back in 2019, he was caught with an underage lady of the night.
Oh.
Yes.
That's unfortunate.
He was charged. He pled no contest. He's been pretty much ostracized from the entire 3D printing community.
And there's no chance this was like some sort of Fed thing, like what they tried to do to Julian Assange? Like, is it pretty obvious this is not just like he actually did it, and it's not just them trying to get rid of him?
It happened down in Texas.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
At the baseline of it all, with the current information held against them, it is on record guilty. Obviously, information and evidence can change if they've been obviously, messed with. But as far as what is known now, they are a guilty party, unfortunately.
Yeah. So what's the point, if I might segue briefly, what is the point of pleading no contest? Isn't it essentially the same as pleading guilty, but like I think the chance for you getting lesser charges because of it or less?
Oh, the whole idea of pleading no contest is saying, you know what, I know that I'm not guilty, but I also know I have nothing to prove my innocence, and you guys have so much against me to make me look guilty. I don't believe that I'll get a fair trial, so I'm just not going to contest these charges and take the punishment as if I was guilty.
Is that the same as, I know there is also something very similar. I can't remember the name of it. It's a plea, and it's named, like the name of the plea is named after somebody's name, and it deals very much like that. Let me see if I can pull that up. Where you basically say you're not guilty, but there's enough evidence to convict you, um, despite being not guilty. And unfortunately, I am blanking on the name of that plea at the moment. But are you by any
Let's see. Nolo Condere. There's only 3 pleas in a criminal case. There's guilty, not guilty, or no contest.
it's apparently called an Alford plea. Which is
Alfred pleas.
also yeah, it's where the guilty part or where someone admits or let's see, it's they do not admit criminal they do not admit guilt, but assert that there is enough evidence.
That's just the term taken on in several courts for the same thing as no contest. Yeah, a defendant in a criminal case does not admit to the criminal act and asserts innocence, but admits that the evidence presented by the prosecution would be likely to persuade a judge or a jury to find the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So that is an Alfred plea.
Yeah.
So outside of the trans hysteria and Dylan Mulvaney, good lord, people lost their minds about Dylan Mulvaney.
Yeah.
We have this wonderful tweet from Mr. Mike Cernovich. He is replying to a quote tweet. And of course, he knows that the tweet he's responding to is all in sarcasm, but I'll read that and then I'll read Mike's tweet, because this sucks. Imagine how different this outcome would have been if there were no citizens walking around freely toting AK-47. Daniel Perry would be living a stress-free, normal life. Sad. Obvious sarcasm is obvious.
Yep.
And Mike Cernovich replies with this wonderful crap nugget of a tweet. It says, I realize you're being sarcastic, but I think open carry is cringe and regularly speak out against it. I banned it from my events as it's goober stuff. Real ones carry concealed and blend in because you don't want terrorists to know who to strike first. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go here. Mike, you're an idiot. Mr. Cernovich, you are a complete and absolute idiot. While I understand that you don't want to be a target, people generally follow what's called the continuum of force. This is something that they teach to law enforcement officers. The continuum of force. You started talking, then if they escalate, you escalate to physical force. If they escalate to less lethal force, you escalate to less lethal force. If they escalate to lethal force, you escalate to lethal force. But there's a step before talking. And that is presenting yourself as a calm threat. Now, this is the exact same idea that has been used in law enforcement and in military service for centuries. You open carry. People know that you are a threat. They don't think that perhaps you are a threat to them at any specific given time, but you are a threat. Which makes them wonder, is it a good idea to do this? To perhaps try something violent? Is it a good idea for me? And generally, the answer is going to be no. Now, you know that. You see a weapon on someone's hip. You know that they're a threat. That puts it in your head, hey, someone's armed in here. What if other people are armed in here? But if you just walk into a place and you don't see anyone armed, do you really think that someone would get in their head, what if someone in here is armed? Do you? Like, honestly, does anyone think that a shooter could be dissuaded from taking a shot simply because they thought someone in here might be armed?
Not that I'm in an opinion.
Well, I would say depends on how cowardly this person is. Like I do know for like if you are one of those people who's trying to commit a mass shooting, I think the expected result, like I think you're gonna die at the end of it, or at least like yeah, I don't think the threat of someone potentially having a gun is going to do very much to dissuade someone at that point. Like death is already kind of baked into their um thinking on the matter.
In certain cases, yes. But we talked last week about the psychology behind mob mentality.
Mm-hmm.
If there is some way to dissuade a person from becoming part of the mob, it's by a show of threat.
Mm-hmm.
That's how people are persuaded to be part of the mob and persuaded to not be part of the mob. They're initially persuaded to be part of the mob because yes, they are a threat. You don't want to speak against them, so you're just going to join them.
Yep.
Whereas, there is a more deadly threat than the mob if there's someone around with a firearm. That person
Yep.
is currently the most dangerous threat in the room. So
Yep.
the question is, which path are you going to take? Are you going to stay the heck out of this crap, or are you going to put yourself in the line of fire? When it comes to the average everyday American mass shooter, yeah, you're probably right. The ones that are not publicized on the media, probably not going to make a difference.
Yeah.
But for the ones that are publicized, like school shootings, the Vegas shooting, I don't buy it. I do not believe that they would have shot up a school if there had been a threat of force beforehand.
Yeah. Well, that's true. 'Cause I believe in the Nashville shooter, they had actually they had actually planned to do it to 2 other schools, but had
Mhm.
been deterred because apparently there was either armed security or they thought there would be some form of bullets coming back at them.
Yep, they had gone to one of the other schools and they had confirmed that there was armed security,
Mhm.
which is, you know, the threat of force
Right.
or the
And then
show of
they
threat.
Mhm.
We generally leave this off of the continuum of force because there's no words, no actions involved. But in all reality, there is action involved. It's just not. It's it's passive. It's passive action.
Yeah.
So I think Cernovich is an idiot. I open carry as much as I can. Obviously, if I go into, say, Walmart, I quickly conceal.
Mhm.
Walmart, Sam's Club, places
Do they
where
not allow open carry?
no, they do not. They will
Unfortunate.
they will ask you to leave if they see you carrying a firearm. Which, you know what? That's fine. I've got a paddle holster. I can just lift my shirt back up around where my holster is and be open carry again the second I walk out the door.
And
Um,
circumstances on Walmarts that even do allow open carry, it's not worth it because the citizens inside of it they will flip out on their own belief and grounds and validate their rights above your own, which is just you better off debating and arguing with a brick wall. You'll get further.
that's true. Um, yeah. Do they allow concealed carry, or is it just they don't see it, so they don't care? Like, is the policy specifically open carry, or just no guns in general? But if
The
they don't see it, it doesn't matter.
the policy is specifically against open carry.
Mm.
It's pretty much all just out of sight, out of mind.
Right. It's kind of funny because don't they have guns in Walmart in the U.S.?
No.
They don't.
Well, I
Did
I,
they
I mean
used to?
in the sports section, yes, they've got some firearms. Buying one, taking one out of the store, that's fine, but it's all going to be in a box.
Ah,
If you're going to bring it back in to maybe like get an exchange or return it or something, it needs to be in the box to begin with.
More often times, you will actually see displayed on doors and exits firearm yes and no's. Sometimes they will say license to carry or no open carry period. It does vary based on the state, what the state is following, and Walmart itself does not definitively stand one way or the other. Just whatever keeps the business flow going.
right.
Okay. And at this point, you could keep beating the dead horse with a stick when it comes to open versus concealed carry. Point of the whole point behind constitutional carry is to allow people to carry however the hell they want to. It doesn't matter if you think it's stupid. It doesn't matter if you think it's not stupid. It matters to the person who is carrying how they want to carry.
In all honesty, as a citizen who doesn't indulge as much in the gun community as my spouse does, I have more common day fears of being stabbed in a Walmart where there is plethora access to knives and sharp instruments more than I am afraid of walking into a building and being shot at.
Well, it's also because you're from California.
And yet, my biggest fear at school was a mountain cat coming down trying to sniff out the lunch food, which we should have just given it because it wasn't good for us. It couldn't have done any worse damage to the cat.
Well, that's from living in Napa.
This was actually in the freaking bumfrack nowhere. This was all the way up in Middletown, where it was nothing in almost every direction.
Dang. And it was mentioned that you were originally from Napa, like Napa Valley.
Yep, Napa Valley, California.
Nice. They make good wine up there, but that's all I really know.
I wouldn't entirely know. I do not like wine, but it is entertaining to see the power of wine in that city for the tourists, the townies, and everybody in between, especially during the earthquakes. I can't help but sadistically laugh when all of that wine just goes to waste. I'm like, ooh, at least it wasn't the bourbon and the whiskey.
Well, the thing that's special about Napa Valley wine is that was the wine that humiliated France.
It did have a pretty good reputation, and it still does. It's just, I definitely, from somebody born from that town and watching it develop and change, it will start to lose its value, and a new location will rise and take the glory. And honestly, I really wouldn't care if it was some other country. I honestly do not think America needs anything more to gloat about. We've got enough to deal with.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest wine person either. I mostly am just happy that they humiliated France. Because fuck France.
Well, hopefully it doesn't deteriorate too far, because the income still flows the best with the wine and the tourism and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Z has to put that in there.
What did Z do? Is that the meme? I just got a ping on the memes channel.
Yeah.
Is that
own the school year like a hero with a bunch of what appear to be semi-automatic hunting rifles in a glass case.
I will say perfect timing, Z. Since we're just discussing this.
Yeah, I think that's why Z posted it. Okay, so we've beat a dead horse with a stick several times. We've been doing it for a long time. I want to move on to, actually being in an anarchist space. And do that, I'm going to bring in a YouTube video. Now, there's a channel on YouTube called Blind Justice, and these videos are old. Like, the start of this playlist started 3 years ago. But the guy and his wife behind this channel, Mike, and I believe his wife's name is Sarah. Don't quote me on that. Mike is a prior service veteran. I believe he was Army. He has several traumatic brain injuries that have caused him to go legally blind. And he has to use a lot of different aids in order to get around. He can't drive. He's got to take public transport when his wife can't take him, that sort of stuff. And because of a family, I think it was a passing in the family, they decided they wanted to move up to North Carolina. And they've been trying to look around at this point for houses in the area. And he's been trying to figure out how to get certain services because, he's a blind veteran. That's where this video picks up.
Alright, in High Point, North Carolina, this is I think this is the Guilford County Courthouse. I'm back on track. What's next? Across the street there was the, what is it? Post office. And then the other building after that was City Hall. Big old building. So this should be Guilford County Courthouse. Let's find its entrance. Maybe. No. This may not be entrance side.
So you guys can see he's using a walking stick.
Yeah.
We're not talking like hiking in the mountains walking stick. We're talking blind people, white cane walking stick.
No. Nope. Maybe this one. Nope. Maybe they're closed for the day.
Is North Carolina the state where it's illegal for anyone to have a white walking stick unless they're blind?
Yes. In most states, it's illegal to have a white walking stick / cane if you are not blind. It's one of the methods in which law enforcement is supposed to be trained to figure out whether or not you're blind. And there's a completely other video that we'll probably discuss next week about law enforcement and the deaf.
Mhm.
Hey-o, open door. Finally. Ooh, that's warm in here. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
Yes, how can I help you?
Yeah, is this the Guilford County Courthouse?
No, it's not. This is the Family Justice Center,
Oh.
but the courthouse is out the door,
Uh-huh.
and you can go to your back to your right,
Yeah.
down the steps,
Yeah.
and then you'll be right there at the front entrance of the courthouse.
Okay. Great.
You go out the door.
Keep going right.
Take a right.
Yeah.
Go down the
Some steps.
hallway, down
Yeah.
the steps. It'll take you to the front entrance of the courthouse.
Okay, cool. And so this is the Family Justice Center?
Yes.
What does that mean? What do you guys do here?
So we assist individuals.
Mind you, this interaction right now, completely fine.
Mhm.
This woman's being extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Giving directions. That's exactly what someone who's blind is going to need. Directions.
Yes.
And she...
Quickly cut in. I just need a link. I've got people wanting to tune in.
Okay, let me try to grab that.
Apologies for the unprofessionalism.
It's not a problem.
And these are actually from the trans community too. They're wanting to tune in. Well, I mentioned the basis is the basics of what was being discussed, and they were just ears perked up. And I know them of the trans community, so I'm having a feeling that is the bridge of interest.
Possibly. Okay, so we have that. And
From the trans community.
Share copy, and I'm going to put it in the general link Actually, no, I'm just going to send it straight to you. Okay.
I
There you
appreciate
go.
that. Thank you.
So when it comes to interacting with a blind person, you not only want to give them directions, but you also want to inform them of the obstacles that are going to be in their way. And she did that. She told him that there were steps that he was going to have to go down. That's useful. This is how you interact with a blind person.
That have situations dealing with domestic violence.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Alright, sit out to the right. Nope. Yep, there's the steps. Or at least first set of steps. She said they were around the corner. Maybe there's more. The sun is going down. Sun's getting real low, big guy. That's what I'm going to try to do. If you got any bailiffs or deputies want to hulk out. Sun's getting real low, big guy. Probably Marvel fans. Oh, man. Kids just watched Ragnarok. Hey, open door, finally.
And this is where things start to go bad.
Breeze is killer.
Yes, sir.
Hi, is this the Guilford County Courthouse?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay. What are the hours this is open?
8 to 5.
8 to 5. All right, cool. Is this... Yes.
Another door. Come right around. All right. What are you trying to do?
I was just trying to walk in any of the public, in the areas that are open to the public, and figure out where the different offices are. Is there like the county prosecutor's office in here, or is there a public defender's office or anything like that?
Yeah, all those are located in this building.
Okay.
But at this point in the building, there are no phones allowed, cameras, communication devices.
Really?
Yes.
What is there? Like as per what?
Literally, I know, but there's
Now, I'm gonna stop right there for the moment because I already know that in reality, the order that was signed that keeps phones and cameras out of the courthouse also has exceptions. And one of those exceptions is for people who have an Americans with Disabilities Act covered disability. And he's blind.
And I assume that's covered in the Americans with Disabilities Act.
It is. It really is.
posted on the door that is a judge's order
Okay. Is it so? It's an order from a judge?
from a judge, the sitting judge, since 2014.
Do you know? Do you have any copies of that, or know where I can find that order?
Yeah. Get Captain. Yeah, call him on the radio. He left. Call him on the radio.
All right.
Unit 26, Unit 4.
Now this gentleman standing with Mike, he is going to become a recurring character in these videos.
What, is it like 4:30, something like that right now?
Can you 25 me at the X-ray machine, please? It is 4:35. Sir.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's getting cold. The sun's going down out there.
Yes, it is.
Do you know if the judge's orders are like on the county? Like, would we be able to find it like on the county website, like the county court or like clerk?
probably out. Sure, but I know he have copies. He can give you a copy.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get it in a format that that I can read. So I can get it in digital. I have a screen reader that. Oh, somebody's coming in. I'll get out of the way.
To sum this up, he was denied access because of his seeing aids, his phone. He's got multiple cameras on him. This is kind of how he gets to interpret the world. He goes around to places. He does First Amendment audits, but he doesn't see anything. He brings the footage back to his wife, and his wife gets to describe to him what the heck is going on. A couple weeks later, I believe, he revisited Guilford County Courthouse.
Hey. We get whoever the ADA coordinator is down to talk about
Let me see if I can,
access.
I'm going to get a hold of somebody from security downstairs and see if they will attempt to get in touch with somebody.
Okay.
Now, mind you, the ADA coordinator is the Americans with Disabilities Act coordinator. This is supposed to be a person that is able to make certain accommodations for the person that's disabled so that the county doesn't get sued. This video is going to get stupid. They're not going to use force yet, but that's coming.
They should be on the way.
No cell phones or
Do you have
smartphones
the name still? Like the
or
ladies?
smartwatches permitted in the building.
I forgot what they are.
I don't know where that is. There's
Okay.
somebody behind you. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Hey, sir. Can I help you with something? Good. Walk over.
Hey, my love. For our recent viewers, would you mind giving another brief on what this video is about? They are questioning.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're taking a look at a YouTube channel called Blind Justice. This is a guy in the First Amendment community, First Amendment auditing community, who is a prior service Army veteran. Throughout his time in service, he had incurred several traumatic brain injuries, which rendered him blind. And because he's blind, there are certain things that governments are supposed to do, to include make certain exceptions in their rules, their laws, for people with certain disabilities. For instance, being blind. You're legally blind. You're not born legally blind. If you're born blind, you're just blind. You become legally blind. And this man became legally blind. He's, at this point, moving up to North Carolina because he has suffered some sort of passing in the family. And he's tried to access this courthouse before. The first time he was denied, no big, was supposedly the judge's orders, but I'm already past that point. I know that the judge's order also included an exception for ADA accommodations, so Americans with Disabilities Act accommodations. It very specifically said that if they are aids in order to do something, they are allowed. And all of the cameras that he has on them, or that he has on him, are, of course, seeing aids for him. Not to mention the white cane, the walking stick.
And
Trying.
to quickly clarify, this is important information because this is all infringing on rights to access to public services and records.
Mm-hmm. It's
So, go ahead.
it's a First Amendment issue. You shouldn't have to be blind just to get access to a public space.
Mhm.
With cameras or recording devices. They make all of these rules and these laws, and it's all built around surreptitious acts or covert acts. If you're recording someone covertly, yeah, they probably don't want you doing that, and you probably shouldn't be doing that. But if you've got a camera or a phone on a gimbal and you're walking around in a public area, it's pretty plainly clear that you're not doing something that you feel you should be ashamed of. And if the government's recording us, why shouldn't we record the government?
So, this part of the podcast is primarily to expose a little bit more understanding what your rights are in these buildings, your rights up to what you have access to, and how a lot of these establishments will go around to refuse you and make it seem like the law is on their side. It is not a foolproof lecture, but it is good information to have on hand to kind of see what they will restrict you from.
Let's see here. Let me take a look. And I'm losing my mouse everywhere. And I'm sorry to the other viewers. I am trying to get back to this so that I can see the chat. I don't know why it doesn't bring up the chat for me in my software. Oh,
What software are you using to see the chat?
well, I just opened up another YouTube window.
Ah.
Okay. It doesn't look like I'm seeing any of the actual chat. I see Stoner. Stoner's in the chat.
Hello.
Oh, why do you feel that you're gonna need some alcohol before this stream is over? Probably because you are, okay?
Well, I told the
that
people that
Stoner?
go ahead.
I said, was that Stoner who
Yeah.
asked that question?
Yeah, Stoner put that in the YouTube chat.
I was going to tag in saying the people that I had linked this podcast to, that they can relay their questions and comments on the YouTube channel. So you will be able to see it. But for any reason, if they find it more comfortable with the chat they hear me from, then I can relay it.
And that's fine. That's not an issue. I just didn't see anyone actually in the YouTube chat, so I was kind of feeling
Well,
like. Go ahead.
I was going to say, supposedly there's 3 viewers. 2 of them are the ones that I linked in. And then the last one should be Stoner.
Okay. So, this is all around knowing the laws of the authoritarian government that you're living under. It's, just because they say it's not legal doesn't mean it's not legal. They don't understand anything about their own system because it's so stinking complicated.
Yep. Needlessly complicated at that.
Okay, let's try to get through
you get that phone number, you know? So that's why, that kind of explains why.
Now, I know you can't read it. I can't read it either. But
No one can.
that judge's order that I was talking about, that's posted in between the notice cellular phones prohibited and the sign on the right that says need help. That 2-page with one really long page and one sort of long page, that's the judge's order. And at the end of the order is the exception for recording devices if you're hard of hearing or you're blind.
Why there's two, there's a backup for my notes. Like if one goes down, the other one's there. But even then,
So,
Yeah.
so you have the audio recorder too. Does that, would, in your, I guess in your eyes?
Yeah.
And I'm really just asking.
Sure,
because
yeah.
I can't enforce policy.
right.
In your eyes, would it be a reasonable accommodation to allow you to bring just the audio device so you could record what the person is saying? Is that?
So I understand that. But here, the eyes operate essentially as a camera, right? And so that's why there's cameras.
Okay. So
Stephanie?
the ADA coordinator.
Yeah, perfect. Great.
I can only
Okay.
imagine how uncomfortable the situation would be being blind. You really wouldn't really have any self-awareness of your security.
Yeah,
They just walk right up to you.
exactly. And that's where this video comes in. No, not this video. At least I don't think so.
Somebody with a
Right.
disability who can't even see or hear, just they use that against them to subdue them is just completely wrong. Sorry for the side comment. It's just that feeling I got knowing that this man is blind and there's nobody with him he can absolutely trust and make sure, hey,
In late
don't be
2019,
approaching
he moved
him
back to North
on your own
Carolina to live
accord.
near family.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So they're actually going to go through a very general walkthrough of the first couple months that they were in North Carolina. And then I'll move on to the whole point of you don't know who is around you, if there are any threats around you. If you're blind, you can't see shit.
And note that these videos that my spouse is jumping between are relevant. They are not just random jumpings. Each of these clips are pretty much similar situations where actual access is denied and some factor they validate their actions against. Like, you're disabled, you don't have a right to be here, we can't help you, you don't have access to that kind of material. But just wanted to validate the jumping from video to video.
While looking for a place to live, we discovered that house foreclosures are listed at the county courthouses and aren't available online. Mike attempted to get access to these lists at several courthouses and was denied access by the security guards. The guards cited local judges' orders banning electronics in the building. These orders violate the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, and the State Open Records Act. Mike also checked out local services available to the community. He shared some of his experiences with the local Veterans Affairs Hospital and several municipal, county, state, and federal services. On February 4th, 2020, Mike was trying to find other mental health services available to the community since the VA services were subpar. He followed up with the Guilford County Health Department in High Point, North Carolina. Security guards attacked Mike, and law enforcement
I want to back up for a second. You remember that gentleman from the first video that was standing with Mike?
Yep.
That's him. On the left-hand
in High
side
Point, North Carolina. Security guards
of this video, he's standing on the left-hand side, and he's about to cuff Mike. He hasn't made himself known. Mike doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know that he's had prior interactions with this guy. This is where things turn violent for Mike.
Attacked Mike, and law enforcement ultimately dumped him outside the jail, unresponsive. EMT services transported Mike to the ER, where the staff discovered a bleed on his brain. We later discovered that they charged Mike with second-degree trespass and resisting an officer. These charges are still pending. We found a house in Madison, North Carolina, and one of the first nights out together, on Friday, February 21st, Madison and Mayodan police attacked us in the parking lot of a local Methodist church. The attackers didn't have any reasonable suspicion, but threatened to smash out the driver's side window. They kidnapped Mike and took him to their station a few blocks away while they tried to decide what to charge Mike with. They eventually took Mike to jail, where the jailers tortured him by taking all of his assistive devices, including his hat and glasses, and tossing him in an isolation cell with a bright light. Mike had a...
Yeah, that's torture.
Yep.
And she's about to go through why it's torture.
migraine in that light and was unable to talk. The jailers stripped him naked and put him on suicide watch. We paid the $2,500 ransom to get Mike out of their torture. They charged Mike with resisting an officer. The charging document says it's because Mike refused to give the Madison officer his ID. Mike made an...
So, when it comes to refusing to give ID, first and foremost, if you are not suspected of a crime, and this, we've had these discussions about reasonable articulable suspicion and probable cause. If they cannot articulate something, multiple objective facts that would lead a reasonable person to suspect that you are about to, are currently in the process of, or have previously committed a crime. If they can't articulate those facts, they cannot detain you. They cannot ask for ID. And on top of that, when it comes to traffic stops, being a passenger in the vehicle, if the driver is pulled over for a traffic infraction, you are only part of that traffic infraction to the extent that you are in the vehicle. You should not exit the vehicle unless you're asked to. You should not, however, give up your identification or, your identifying information if you are the passenger. If they do not have reasonable articulable suspicion that you as the passenger are in the process or have committed a crime, don't give it to them. It's a stupid thing to do. Regardless, they'll still take you to jail, or at least try to. They'll try to coerce you into giving you their ID. The only time at which you should give up your ID in such an instance is when they threaten you with arrest, and always have that on camera, because that is a major civil rights violation.
At this point, should start normalizing dash cams of the sort. Just
Oh, yeah.
immediately install those.
Dash cams. I've been looking at camera systems for our cars. Been looking at camera systems for the truck.
Chest cams and like those necklaces, or even for glasses if you wear them.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just coming down to as much visual evidence as possible.
Which
weird.
that was the whole reason why body cameras were supposed to be put with cops in the first place. It was to encourage transparency. But
Yep.
when cops can turn on and off their cameras and mute the audio at will,
Yep.
what about that says transparency?
Nothing.
Hollywood has done well to lay the groundwork for editing and foraging visual effects.
Well, and there's laws that these states have to abide by. Anything that is collected by the state, be it courthouse clerks, judges, law enforcement officers, it's all supposed to be publicly available. Now, they do have to redact certain information, like identifying information of a person, their address, their date of birth, that sort of stuff. But they're still supposed to give you the document. They cannot heavily redact the documents either. And video and audio falls under the category of document.
But what is the law and what the law enforcer actually acts upon are
Completely
most
different
often
things.
different. Yes.
Yeah, they're completely different things, which is
Those-
one of the points I'm trying to get across. They don't know their own system. It's too complicated. This is why we're anarchists to begin with. They built such a complicated system, and everyone's a criminal. Everyone. Every single person in the United States commits at least one felony a week. 23 crimes a day.
we could start
Everyone.
Could start replacing the theme song for police officers from Bad Boys to Britney Spears' Criminal. Mama, I fell in love with a criminal.
Oh, Jesus.
Just start playing that behind the scenes of everyone being arrested, because everyone's a criminal. Why not?
Moving on.
An administrative request under Title II of the ADA to be allowed equal access to the courts. He wanted to be able to attend all of his hearings with his normal, everyday assistive devices that allow him to take notes, have access to his notes, and to be able to read documents. Rockingham County District Court Judge Chris Freeman illegally denied his request and threatened Mike with contempt if Mike should go to court and use his assistive devices. We've made numerous attempts to resolve this injustice by trying to talk with the old chief of police, the new chief of police, the town mayor, the town alderman, the county board of commissioners, the district attorney's office, the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office, the state legislators, the North Carolina Attorney General's Office, the NCAOC, North Carolina Administrative Offices of the Courts, the Governor's Office, the State Bureau of Investigations, and the FBI. After trying to address and correct these injustices through all of the checks and balances that we could think of and finding no relief, Mike took to the streets of Madison in a one-man protest. We wanted the people of Madison to know that there is a major problem with the local police and justice system. An angry and violent mob of people from surrounding towns and counties formed and chased Mike and I through town. Some people physically attacked Mike and stole his sign out of his hand. One of those people we've identified as Donald May. The mob continued to stalk, harass, and make threats to us as we walked through town, even after Mike no longer had a sign. Jason White, the new Madison police chief, actually thanked the angry mob at one point. And
Can you honestly believe? I mean,
What kind of town is this where mobs just show up and attack people for holding signs?
oh,
The
let's
white-
see.
The white kind.
Oh, Jesus.
But-
Don't start. Don't start. Not with that.
But wasn't he white as well?
Let's see.
I
Guilford
don't think this.
County, North Carolina. If
I've never seen that behavior before.
I do
someone just
apologize.
where someone just walks up to you, where someone will just walk up to you for protesting and just start assaulting you.
Unfortunately, my comment towards it is just evidential. Most of this behavior does come from the white community. It's not the primary factoring reason, but it is a
Yeah.
shameful
I mean,
one.
like, because it wasn't a very politicized thing he was protesting over. Like, it wasn't a very contentious issue that tends to rile people up.
But here's the
It's-
actual location.
Yeah, so here's Greensboro, North Carolina. This is Guilford County. Now,
Hmm.
I think I'm the only one here that's ever lived in North Carolina. You've got Winston-Salem, you've got Greensboro, you've got Durham, you've got Raleigh. These are urban areas of North Carolina. These are pretty much the only urban and suburban areas of North Carolina. If you want, well, I mean, you've got Charlotte and you've got Fayetteville, but Fayetteville's more Army. And then you've got Jacksonville over here, and that's Marine Corps.
Right.
You want to stay out of the military regions. These are your 4 major cities of North Carolina. And if you're in Guilford County, you are dealing heavily with Greensboro and its surrounding suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
2 of his officers began leading the angry mob to our house. Mike returned to downtown Madison that evening with Jeff from
2 of his officers led the mob to his house.
All of this over a cell phone video, or all of this over cell phones in a
all of this over someone who is blind trying to exercise their rights as an American citizen.
Yeah.
It's not just the camera. It's the protests. A one-man protest and a mob is following him to his house under direction of law enforcement.
What the fuck?
And, conservatives are like, oh, well, the problems are all in the urban areas, Chicago, New York City, Los Angeles. No, it's like I've said in the past, it's not just those areas. It's just those areas have people constantly recording. North Carolina, how many stories do you hear out of North Carolina about someone getting arrested for recording? 0. Zilch. Nada. It's not happening because people aren't doing it there. It doesn't mean it's not happening there. It just means that people are not recording it happening there.
NC Tyrant Hunter YouTube channel, and one more protest sign. The angry mob showed up again and attacked. Donald May and Roy Lee Reed Jr. attacked Jeff and stole his sign. At the 2 other protests Mike attended in Madison, people stole Mike's sign then too. One assailant was again Roy Lee Reed Jr., and the other was Mason Gould. On October 6th, Mike tried to attend the district court trial in Rockingham County for the charge of resisting, stemming from the church parking lot attack. The sheriff deputies physically blocked Mike from entering the courthouse and refused to discuss with Mike their reasons.
No, you're on trial, but you cannot go inside and defend yourself.
What? Like,
Yeah.
What?
You're not.
No, it does not make sense. Not at all. But that is very much normalized nowadays.
Minutes later, the deputies kidnapped Mike again on the courthouse steps by order of Judge James Grogan. They took Mike to jail and booked him in with a staggering ransom of $50,000 cash-only bond requirement. They threw Mike in the bright isolation cell again, and Mike again had another migraine. The next day, they transferred Mike to a maximum security prison in Raleigh, North Carolina, where they locked Mike in an isolation.
So Greensboro, this happened in Greensboro. They transported him all the way from Greensboro down around the south side of Durham to Raleigh, which is a good 50 miles away.
And in a max security prison for
Maximum security prison.
for
Because he
what?
didn't appear for his court case. He didn't appear
That
for
he
it.
wasn't allowed.
Exactly. Make it make sense.
And notice how the power of the community surrounding the situation. Imagine the outcome if this community had turned in favor of the blind man in support. It would have nearly an entirely different outcome.
When it comes down to it, if a government is trying so hard to not be transparent, you know that they've got something to hide. You need to dig for it.
Has he like this seems like federal lawsuit type of thing? Like
He's
has
got to
he?
get his name cleared before he can do a federal lawsuit.
Hmm.
Isolation
Well,
cell
but
for 10.
Go ahead.
I mean, if there's video of him being prevented from appearing in court by the cops, can't you, even if you are guilty of something, can't you still sue just over that? Like, the cops not letting him in and then charging him because he wasn't in?
It's possible, but you have to get around evidence laws. There's this thing called a motion to suppress. If new evidence comes to light over anything in a court case, both parties have the ability to submit a motion to suppress that evidence. And if they suppress that evidence, that means that evidence can't be taken into account when at trial and when making a decision.
In my opinion, the situation pretty much comes down to even if the law is naturally meant to bend like to the left, everybody who has power over the situation to influence it, the legal team, the people in the building that started all this, and the community itself, if they're pushing all together to bend it to the right, doesn't matter how much naturally this should be going and being handled. The people who are influencing it are just going to bend it the way it benefits them. So as much as they legally should be able to do this, how they should be able to submit this and pursue this form of justice, it's almost never going to show results because of everybody pushing against its nature. So it's like the world working against you, pretty much.
Okay, so we're gonna try to get through the last 2 minutes of this real quick.
10 days. I managed to get a bank loan and gather the $50,000 cash in a backpack. I took the ransom to the Rockingham County Magistrate's office, where they counted it by hand twice, then sent their deputies to retrieve Mike from prison. They forced Mike to sign the bond paperwork where they told him he was on house arrest and wasn't allowed to go anywhere except for court, lawyers' visits, and scheduled medical appointments. On October 23rd, Mike went to trial in the Rockingham County District Court with Chris Freeman. They stripped Mike of his due process and disability rights and forced him into court without his assistive devices. Chris Freeman rubber-stamped a guilty verdict contrary to the facts found in the trial. Even though they had already punished Mike with 4 days in county jail, 10 days in maximum security prison, and 6 days house arrest, Chris Freeman punished Mike more by sentencing him to 12 months probation with community service. On October 28th, we filed the...
How do you expect a man who is blind using a walking stick, a white cane, a seeing eye stick, to do fucking community service? How do you expect someone to do that? Honestly.
I don't know. But, like, I still can't get over what was this mob yelling at the guy about? Like, what was their problem with him? Was it
You've got to understand these are extremely red areas. Now, you've got red areas like Iowa,
Mhm.
and they appear red because of the voting block,
Mhm.
but in reality, they're black. There's a lot of anarchists in Iowa. We don't like the legal system. It's corrupt, and we hold it to account a lot of the time. But, it's gone so long without being checked that, something needs to be done about it. But
Mhm.
there are very few thin blue line, believers in the state.
Right.
Whereas in states like North Carolina, where it's not just a red voting block, it is a red block, there's a lot of thin blue liners. They think law enforcement can do no wrong, and when they do, it's not their fault.
Mhm.
Sounds to me like the Nuremberg defense.
Yep. I thought that most of that, I honestly thought most of that went away with COVID when these people saw the atrocities being committed by these supposed cops. But
You'd
I
think
guess,
you would think,
like,
but it's just not that simple. You've got people who have been so brainwashed, and it's the left and the right, and I've been saying it this entire time that we've been running this podcast. It doesn't change. If you're brainwashed, either you're gonna snap out of it or you're not. But generally, when you haven't snapped out of it, you're gonna support your side no matter what, even in the face of cognitive dissonance.
the appeal to Superior Court, and Chris Freeman punished Mike again. He ordered Mike to be placed under house arrest and for the court to continue to hold the $50,000 ransom. Rockingham County Superior Court is scheduled for November 30th. The bank is collecting an $800 a month payment on the ransom the court is still holding. This is only a summary of some of the injustices we've personally witnessed and been subjected to in North Carolina. If you want to call or email or protest or redress the government for any of this, feel free to do so. Just know that we've been attempting to remedy these injustices this whole time, and it seems the government's response is to keep adding more injuries. Thanks for tuning in.
Okay, so there's that.
I would have thought that the thin blue liner type people also would have had a bit more respect for like veterans, not just cops. But it seems, at least in North Carolina, that is not the case.
No, because in North Carolina, you got two major bases. You got AP Hill, and you've got Camp Lejeune. And there's Marines and soldiers getting in trouble all the stinking time. All the stinking time. It gets
Getting in
kind of
trouble in like
ridiculous.
in what way getting in trouble?
Vandalism, drunk driving,
So basically like frat
sexual
boy type of
assaults.
crimes.
Yeah, and it can escalate. There was a huge rash of drug use back in 2009 and 2010 in the Marine Corps when spice was a thing.
Really?
Yeah, and that stuff will make you do some weird things.
Yeah. Isn't that the stuff that made that one guy eat that other guy's face?
Yes, it was.
Ah, yes.
Synthetic cannabinoids.
Spice was the drug for memes about the zombie apocalypse because if
Yeah.
you did spice, you pretty much acted like you were a freaking zombie.
Yep. Well, as I said, I believe in. I think it was in Florida.
Of course it's
in
Florida, man.
Yeah, Florida man eats other man's face while on space.
But the whole reason why spice was so dangerous in the first place was because they could not control how much got on different portions of the object that was smoked. So you could take a hit that, didn't feel like much anything, and then you could take another hit and just get all of the synthetic THC right then and there.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. Wouldn't it be fairly easy to control the amount? Because don't you always just spray it on something? So shouldn't that be easy to control?
It should be easy to control, but we're talking about people who have very little experience in the, say, painting industry. You spray, move left to right. You spray, move right to left. You spray, move left to right. Down and down and down you go. And there's still going to be overlap.
Right.
So, I mean, you can control it to an extent, but not enough that it's going to make things much better. The way it was being sprayed back then was so horribly inconsistent that they'd basically lay down this stuff that you were going to smoke. They'd just spray it on, and so there'd be stuff at the bottom that didn't get any of it, and all the stuff at the top would get all of it.
Not to mention that this stuff would, in very common usage, would be toxic reactions, elevated blood pressures, reduced blood supply to the heart, kidney damage, and glorious seizures. Nothing like smoking that something's literally called synthetic. Doesn't sound organic at all. Might as well go smoke some plastic.
Yep. Or meth. Another synthetic drug.
Yeah, at least that one's a commonly used drug. But spice is quite literally just the bottom of the bottom barrel, desperate for a high.
Yeah, that or like sniffing glue.
I hate to make this public stoner, but seriously, take it out of the general chat and put it into the memes. Please. And thank you.
I didn't do shit.
I know you didn't do shit, but Stoner did.
Sorry, this is somebody in the Discord server is being very naughty.
And he'll hear it here soon. So I'm not going to move to the next video until our next stream on Saturday the 15th. Because that's when you're really going to see the crap. I had pointed out that black gentleman in this video and previous videos, him attacking Mike comes in the next video that I'm going to show everybody, and it's egregious. They quite literally, when they sent that footage to Mike and his wife for their lawyer, they cut out the part where the the security officer had actually used a takedown maneuver to force Mike to the ground. All the while, Mike is asking, "Who's there? Who is this? What are you doing? Who are you? Who are you? Who are you?" And this guy doesn't say jack shit.
Nothing like having your disability used against you.
Nothing like having your disability ignored.
I'd rather have it being ignored, because at least then they're ignoring me, the one who's disabled. But nah, having it used against you is just worse.
Isn't it also against the law for prosecution to edit out some of the video that they
Yes,
are
it
legally
is.
required?
Yes, it is. It is
What
so
the-
extremely illegal, but they
What
don't
the
care.
law is. Yeah, what the law is doesn't mean that's what they're doing.
But shouldn't this be like the easiest thing to appeal in all of like recorded history?
What
Like this is complete.
what we're working with is the good old boy code of conduct. Good old boys don't care about the law. Good old boys care about what's right. In their moral justification, if it's right to make their buddy look a little bit less shitty, they're gonna do it.
They see it as, I'm doing right by helping my friend in a bad situation. If I don't help him, I'm wrong. Even if going after the person who's actually in the right just renders all of it useless. But in some way, they will find a way to validate it.
Yeah, but what I mean is like when the appeal to the superior court, like shouldn't this be like the easiest thing to appeal because they've broken numerous laws here and
They are
done everything wrong.
When you're dealing with state charges, you go through your state court system, which means you get your district court, I think,
Mhm.
and then you get an appellate court, and then you can appeal up to the state supreme court. And the
Yeah.
state the excuse me, the highest court of the state generally, if they see something egregious that happened in the transcript of the appellate court, they're going to actually take on the case. There will be a 3-judge panel. The case will be argued, but it's almost like the Supreme Court of the US. You get to appeal to them. They'll take a look at the files, the transcripts. They'll do a once over. They'll vote either to push it into hearings, or they'll do what's called a grant, vacate, and remand, GVR, or they'll just deny the case outright.
Right.
And most of the cases that go up in front of a state Supreme Court or the Supreme Court of the US, most of those are denied.
Right.
Because what's supposed to go up in front of those courts are supposed to be landmark decisions. Now, sometimes they'll see something that's egregious, and they'll grant, vacate, and remand the court or the case down to the lower court. But a lot of the times those aren't seen. You have to have something huge and visual in front of the entire public for these courts to take it on.
Too noisy to cover up.
Yeah, so what I meant is, and the initial appeal, and shouldn't this be very easy to like get thrown out on the appellate level just because of the sheer egregiousness of it all?
It should be, until you realize you're working with the good old buddy.
That's what we're trying to explain to you is, yes, in black and white theory, it should be a clean-cut case. Hey, this is wrong. I want justice. Clean cut. But people who are serving and maintaining the system of the law, how things should be ran, there's people within it that are doing more personal gain, not what should be done.
Hey, Dale, you
Yeah.
you remember me talking about the case in West Virginia where a family court
Oh, yeah.
judge had searched a man's home?
Yeah.
No warrant, nothing. When they had put her up in front of the ethics board, and the ethics board took her in front of the state Supreme Court, what do you think happened?
I would assume she got some form of like punishment out of it, or
No. In fact, they tabled it after the first hearing because one of the judges on the panel had actually been a former serving family court judge and had done the same things and basically said this is legal, this should be legal. It wasn't until the West Virginia state legislature stepped in that things started moving. That judge that held things up
Mhm.
had put up such a huge roadblock trying to get other family court judges in the state to basically say, no, this is not something that you should be punishing her for because you're going to have to punish all of us. Punish them all then.
Another simple way
Mm.
of putting it would be kind of like you, me, and Erica are all judges on a case. Somebody stole from another person, obviously clean cut, dry. But when it comes down to the voting, I chose to let the person go because I think it's going to ruin their life over a trivial matter. And boom, he gets set free. Was that fair? Absolutely not. How did I have more power to overrule everybody else? Something went against the actual system. I had
Yeah.
power, I had leverage, I did something to dirty the results. Why? Because I wanted to. It's as simple as that for a majority of these situations.
Yeah, so it's the good old buddy system. I got a buddy, my buddy's got a buddy. I need to do my buddy a favor because he made a stupid call and his buddy made a stupid call. I'm just going to cover their back.
Mm-hmm.
That's North Carolina. It's the good old buddy system.
You scratch my back, I scratch your back. Everybody, we do good favors under the table. Stoner.
Is there a
What?
way to redress that? Like, can you jump over to federal side and deal
In
with it that way?
in some instances, yeah, you can. If you think you have such a huge landmark case, you can take it straight to the Supreme Court and have them intervene in the justice system. But it's got to be good. And this is the problem that we've been running into in the 2A community, in the Anarchist 2A community with New York and their new concealed carry or enhanced concealed carry laws.
I saw that, Stoner.
No, that was Stephanie.
I saw something.
With the way that New York has been handling the court cases against New York, they've basically been denying motions that shouldn't be denied without a hearing. But they're doing it anyways, and we've been trying to get these cases up to the Supreme Court and say, hey, look, they're abusing their power at the state level. We need you to intervene and take control of this. But the Supreme Court's already slapped that down once before.
They did.
They did.
When it comes
Was that the one where like New York had some law and it was clearly unconstitutional and the Supreme Court took it up, but then it was something about transferring guns between like the range in your house or something, and then New York like got rid of the law while it was about to go up to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court ruled it as moot because the law no longer existed.
No, that's not what that case is.
Oh.
But yes, states often do that when they put in a new law. What would happen was that they would justify the law to the district court, say, well, but we have an interest in having this law. And the courts would say, okay, fine. So that would get appealed. And the state again would come to the judge and say, but we have a good reason for it. And the judge would find in favor of the state. And then it would go up and up and up until it hit the Supreme Court, and they know that the Supreme Court's going to take it on, so they'll just remove the law and change it and make it fit constitutional muster. That's the dirty game that states have been playing for centuries now. If the law no longer exists, there's nothing the Supreme Court can do about it, because if the law is not there, they can't do anything.
All right. I'm curious. Would it be possible, and I'm wondering if it is, why no one's attempted to do this, for a state that is say you have a state that is actually pro Second Amendment, could they pass a law that is very anti Second Amendment with the express intent of having it get put to the Supreme Court and then gotten rid of in all states, or is that something that they couldn't do?
Well, I mean, they could do that. The problem with it is that Supreme Court decisions are supposed to be narrowly tailored. For instance, when they took the Obamacare law up to the Supreme Court basically said, oh, well, we can't invalidate the entire law. We can only invalidate a section of the law. And, if you want to invalidate another section of the law, you're going to have to take it through again. So they have to narrowly tailor their decisions when they make these rulings. Now, there have been broad decisions in the past. And these are cases that lend to abuse in the system. For instance, Chevron deference.
Yeah.
Chevron oil case basically gives the APA the I don't remember what that alphabet soup group
It's the EPA.
EPA.
Yes.
It gave them the broad authority to regulate something. Even though it's not in the law, it gives the agency this favor in the eyes of the court. And this is what happens when their rulings aren't narrow enough. lawyers and um, I forgot the word. It's bureaucrats.
Yeah.
Lawyers and bureaucrats find ways around the wording.
Mhm.
So in the instance of making a law that is so incredibly anti-2A that it wouldn't pass constitutional muster, I would have to think that one of or any of the Supreme Court judges is going to look at this case and say, you are turning this into a clown court. And they're going to dismiss it.
Hmm. Like, you think they would say that because of how outright ridiculous the law would be, or the intent, the reason behind the law? Like, they would dismiss it because they don't want states intentionally, like,
Yeah.
making laws specifically to have the Supreme Court overturn things in other states.
Yes. Now, there are ways to get laws that aren't going to pass constitutional muster up to the Supreme Court and heard by the Supreme Court. For instance, a split in the circuits. So West Virginia is in the 4th Circuit, California is in the 9th Circuit. Cases are very pro 2A in the 4th Circuit. You take it up to the appellate court, they're going to be very lenient with someone when it comes to 2A. Whereas in the 9th Circuit, they are going to deny you all day, every day.
Right.
So that's what gets cases on the radar of the Supreme Court, is having splits in the circuits. Or even just at one circuit, having a split in the panel of judges. One side of the panel says yes to a decision, one side of the panel says no to a decision, and it's an even split down the middle. That's going to get the Supreme Court interested in it. They will only take cases that stand out to them.
Right. So you mentioned that New York was still kind of doing all this fuckery with the constitutional carry. What are they doing? What have they been doing since Bruin? Because that kind of
they-
looked like it knocked a lot of the fuckery out of New York.
They basically made all of New York a gun-free zone.
Really?
In Bruin, Justice Thomas quite literally said, "You cannot make the entire island of Manhattan a gun-free zone. You can narrowly tailor gun-free zones to sensitive places, like courthouses, like churches, things of this sort, where there are generally armed law enforcement or armed security when there are people around.
Mhm.
But you cannot make the entire place gun-free." At which point, New York said, "Hold my beer," passed it off, made a law that basically said all businesses are now gun-free unless the owner of the establishment explicitly makes it so that it's not gun-free. Which you cannot do.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't sound right that you can make a law that only apply that like people can opt out of, but is in effect until you opt out of. That doesn't sound like it
Exactly.
passes.
It doesn't pass constitutional muster because you cannot make a law that presupposes a negative position toward a right. So
Mhm.
all of the first 10 amendments, those are negative rights.
Yeah.
Which means the people have the power, the government doesn't. The government
Mhm.
can't make laws respecting a establishment of religion. They cannot make
Mhm.
laws infringing on the right of the people to keep and bear arms. They cannot make laws that circumvent the right to privacy. They cannot make laws that circumvent your right to be secure in your possessions and the objects that you own. They cannot make laws circumventing your right to remain silent.
Mhm.
But they're still trying. These states still try to do this crap.
Is
And
there any
go
court
ahead.
cases in the coming out of New York for all this nonsense at the moment,
Oh,
or
they've been slammed with like 10 cases so far. I think it's around 10. I
yeah,
know.
because one thing I would think that the Supreme Court would be very interested in taking up is laws that are explicitly trying to subvert recent Supreme Court decisions.
Yes.
They'd probably have an interest in taking those up.
The two most interesting cases I have ever heard of, ever going up to the Supreme Court. One was in 1938. I don't remember who he was facing, but one of the parties was named Gobitis, Gobitis,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a First Amendment case. The Supreme Court basically found that it was lawful to force people to stand for the national anthem and to recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know what happened in 1938, don't you?
It worldwide or in the U.S. specifically?
Worldwide.
That was the first year of World War II, I believe.
It
Was that
was
the
the
year
it,
Hitler invaded Poland?
it was the year that Hitler invaded Poland. Now, the
Mhm.
next case is 1943. It's Barnett versus West Virginia State Board of Education. The makeup of the court in party has not changed. I think there is one new justice. I think.
Mhm.
7.
How was this decided? Like the first one decided unanimously? Was it a split
It,
decision, or was it
I'm
very?
I'm fairly certain that it was an 8-1 decision. One person dissented in 1938. In 1943, there was a case in front of the Supreme Court, Barnett versus West Virginia State Board of Education, brought by the Watchtower Organization, aka Jehovah's Witnesses.
Ah, yes.
Their children had been kicked out of school, suspended, blah, 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 because they would not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem. And I respect that right. I do. I absolutely do. Because I was raised as one of them. I never stood for the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance. And after seeing 5 years of what happens to people both in the US and in Europe at the time, that would not, pledge their loyalties either to the US or to the Nazis, the Supreme Court overturned itself. Only one new justice, seven of the original justices overturned their own decisions, and only one wrote a dissent. And the one that wrote the dissent, can you believe that it was a Jewish man that didn't believe Hitler was doing anything wrong?
Really? That's
Really.
interesting.
He believed that it was absolutely fine for patriotism to be forced. And, I respect he's got his point of view, but as with most dissenting arguments when it comes to the Supreme Court, it was all bluster and emotion. It was nothing about the facts. So things really have to be in the eyes of the Supreme Court for them to make any decision, and it's got to be big. Okay, well, we are running into 7:05 right now. I believe it's about 8 o'clock where you're at.
Yep, 8:05.
We are going to go ahead and give our listeners a send-off, and then we will do our after hours, which if anyone is interested in doing after hours, perhaps Coda's friends or anyone else, please feel free to get in contact with her or myself, and we will bring you into our Discord channel for these discussions. I want to thank Coda for being a host for her very first time on this podcast. Please say bye.
Very, very little, but goodbye. Have a good night.
And I want to thank Dale again for being a recurring host on the podcast. I really appreciate you helping me get this up and at least offering me some discussion.
Always happy to share my irrelevant opinions on things.
As a fucking Canadian. Fucking Canuckistanis.
Yep, we are Soviet Canuckistan after all.
You leave the gentle maple leaf alone.
No, I will not. I will
leave
not.
the gentle maple leaf alone.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the outro music. We will see you next week. Love you, and bye.
So long. Excellent. You all suck. But yeah, I really hope that the Supreme Court does in fact knock down New York again. Not sure. Yeah. I just know somewhere in the depths of Justice Thomas's heart, he wants to take out the NFA too. And I eagerly await that day. The NFA and the GCA are overturned.
does after hours entail?
It's usually spicier takes than allowed on YouTube.
If I'm still allowed in, I just think it should be on record that I am absolutely baked potatoed the fuck out.
Very nice.
Yeah, so I'm like here, but also not
Did you-
here.
Did you smoke or did you?
I
consume?
smoked. I have a dab. I have
Oh,
a
very
dab
nice.
card. I have to do the dab card so it doesn't smell.
Is weed?
In
Is it
certain
still-
areas, yes.
So I mean, in your state, is it legal?
License required.
So medical license, but not
Yeah.
recreational yet? That's
Yeah.
unfortunate. Well,
Yeah, they'll try to milk it medicinally as much as possible, and then once the number of underground clubs and freaking dealers start just outsmarting and making their money regardless, they'll cut the value of making it illegal, and then once it's legal, everyone